Hey everybody, Guy here from Chit Chat. Thanks so much for continuing to listen. We sure appreciate it. Just got done recording one of the most delicious podcasts we've done. Mike Lardy from Bravo Burrito came on to talk about their 40 years in business. He and his wife Sam bought it a handful of years ago after having worked there for a couple of decades. And yeah, I love small business. I love local restaurants. And so getting to talk to Mike all about that was really, really a treat. So again, thanks for listening and excited for you to learn more. Thanks. Mike, thanks for coming to join on the podcast. Really, really appreciate it.
Right on, Guy. Yeah, thanks for bringing me to your basement. I love this.
That could be said better, but yeah. Actually, as Mike was coming down, he and we found out that we share an affinity for all of these like weird old basements in downtown St. Cloud, and we each kind of have a running list of like the ones that we've been in, which is kind of fun. We should compare lists at some point.
We totally should.
Yeah. Have you been in Ashley Green's next door?
Upstairs, not the basement.
This is a top two. It's a top. Hers is a top two basement. It's terrifying. Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. You should seriously. We should go knock on her door and say,
yeah, right.
Okay, Mike. You tell us a little bit about. You own Bravo Burrito.
Yes.
And it was also your first job when you were young.
Almost
your first job. Okay, well tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Mike Lardy. I'm a Central Minnesota born and raised native.
What high school?
And I went to high school in Cold Spring at Corey.
Yep.
I lived near downtown St. Cloud until I was 5, and then my grandfather bought a big farm, and the whole family moved out to the farm out in the Rockville area. And I grew up out there, lived in St. Cloud or Waite Park for a while. I had an apartment in St. Cloud for a while, and now I live out in Luxembourg, which is basically city of St. Augusta.
Yeah.
But I am a born and bred native,
Yeah.
and still happy to be here.
Yeah.
And yeah, Bravo was, I guess I would say it was kind of like my third or fourth job, depending upon if you count like
Mowing lawns.
Yeah, I lived in the country, so I mowed the lawn for the family and stuff. But I worked at a couple of fast food places, and I tried to sell mortgage refinancing when I was like 18.
Wow.
And I was not good at that when I was 18. But I spent a little bit of time being between jobs, and a good friend of mine worked at this burrito shop called Bravo, and he was like, dude, like, we always need people, man. You should come and work here. And so I rolled in and interviewed for about 6 minutes and got the gig.
Nice.
And 26 years later, the rest is history. And I'm still there. And when the founders retired, I took over with my wife as business partner. And here we are, here to stay.
And what year did you guys buy?
It was April Fool's Day, 2021.
Wow. In like the throes of COVID.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 2020.
Okay.
And we had already started talking with the bankers and that stuff. And the succession plan was a long time coming. So we were more than prepared to get the ball rolling on it. And we went to the bankers, and they're like, look, it's not happening right now. Promise you it's not happening right now. Let's look at it in a year. So we basically knuckled down to try and like hold the thing together through the deepest part of COVID. And then, it was still like a weird, like partial occupancy thing in Minnesota when we bought it. But Bravo has the best regulars, the best crew, and they held our hand through the whole process. Our staff and regulars were there for us as we took the reins of ownership. Obviously, we weren't new to the place. We weren't like interlopers coming into their favorite place. Like, we were already more or less the face of the business. So it was a relatively smooth process, all things considered.
Nice. What was your role at the time when you purchased?
My wife and I were co-managing, more or less handling, almost like 90% of the day-to-day operations outside of some of the back office stuff that an owner takes care of. We were already hands-on. I was the head cook at the time, and Sam, my wife, was the more or less general manager. And our roles more or less stayed that way for quite a while after we took over, as we figured out like how to actually own a business and not just work for one.
What has been, I mean, obviously you have a unique kind of ownership journey in that you were at the business for such a long time. So you knew that business intimately well. But what's something that caught you off guard? Even in a business that you knew, what's something that caught you off guard after purchasing?
So more when I was younger, but I really thought I knew everything.
Okay.
And the older you get, the more you realize like you don't really know anything. But when we took over as owners, we didn't really have any support in the back end operations. Like we were already, able to like write checks and sign checks and take care of the day-to-day stuff. But day one we took over, I was the bookkeeper for the business. And I had our new accounting firm that we hired, a local company, kind of tell me like, buy this software or get QuickBooks, whatever, and start working on it. But then it was like, okay, I guess I'm going to YouTube University to learn how to do bookkeeping. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And that first month was like still really hands-on in the business. And then also, basically like night school, learning how to do the back end stuff. So we really crash coursed hard on the back end of business ownership. And then we're able to, kind of equalize and kind of get the ship just kind of cruising down the river or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. That's great. When you eat at Bravo, do you eat the same thing every single time, or do you explore the menu?
At this point in the game, I wouldn't say it's the exact same thing, but more or less, if I'm there during the day, I'll have a little bowl or a couple of tacos right away. When I was younger, like for example, like my first day, I remember my first day. There was a couple of like old school, like, this was in the 90s kind of rituals, like one guy would hand you a chip with habanero hot sauce on it. You got to eat this, and then another guy is like, you got to come out back and do a little bit of, really quick, doesn't happen that way anymore. This was the 90s, but and then my friend that got me the job was like, well, you have to get a smothered burrito with chicken verde and rojo sauce on it. I was like, I don't know about hot sauce. He's like, it's the mildest one, like I'd already taken a bite of the hottest one. I was like, I ain't eating that.
Yeah.
And I ate this, big plate of burrito with chips and a salad. And I was like, all right, got to go back to work for 6 more hours. Okay. I was 19 and I bounced back out of it. And to these days, if I ate something like that at 10:30 in the morning, then I'd be having a midday siesta and then probably video games afterwards and not work. So I have, a couple of tacos. We run relatively regular specials of different things, this and that. So when we're doing that, I get really excited about like a limited offering. Like right now we've got this Al Pastor tacos. I can't get enough of that. Yeah. And then we stop making it and I can't have it and nobody else can. So I go back and have something else. Yeah. But I am a almost everyday Bravo regular myself still. Yeah,
that's great. I can think of, just because of growing up here, at least 2 other locations that used to be Bravos. Is that right?
There was downtown St. Cloud.
Yep.
That was the founding location. And there was also one in Minneapolis for a few years in the 90s.
Wasn't there one on Highway 10?
No. What?
I thought that the subway at one point was a Bravo years ago.
I can guarantee it wasn't.
Okay, great. I believe you.
Now I'm trying to think of like what, I lived in one of those apartments just up past there for a while in my 20s. And it was a subway then. So I'm curious about the history of that spot now too.
Yeah. I moved to the St. Cloud area when I was like 8. So that would have been in 1990. I was born in 85. So in like the early to mid 90s, I thought that I went and had a Bravo over there. I think it was the first restaurant that my family ate at when we moved to St. Cloud from
Bravo.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
That'll keep you in the community.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so you guys currently have one location. Do you think about more locations? Do you think about franchising or expansion? Like, how do you, as a restaurant owner, how do you kind of engage with that idea of being local and being a part of this community and either growing in our community with another location or going to another community? Do you think about any of that stuff?
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, as a business owner or entrepreneur, you gotta have your dreams.
Yeah.
And you gotta have your dreams that are more realistic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, we know that we're a popular spot.
Yeah.
And we could serve other communities or whatever. We take a yearly trip to Duluth with our family. Our kids love it. We stay at the same Airbnb every year, and maybe someday that'll change. But even this year, the kids they're stoked to head back to that same Airbnb, and
that's really fun.
And a place like that we like to vacation. We're always up there trying restaurants. Like, oh yeah, we could fit in this community, or this, or whatever. But at the same time, we are two owner operators that are, more or less 4.5 years in as business owners, and trying to stay realistic about what our goals are, and like right now we're about to get into our catering season, and that's when we remember very clearly that our kitchen is at the max. Our restaurant was put together and designed in 1993. We opened at our location at Plaza West, and if we could have a whole notebook full of like, if it was this way, it would be better. If it was this way, it would be better. So right now, like as we're progressing through like our long-term lease and working on our, servicing the debt to buy the business and stuff, we need to start thinking seriously, like, are we going to stay here? Are we going to go somewhere else? Are we going to renovate where we're at? And I mean, those are serious questions.
Yeah.
I guess you're a building owner and you've torn a few things down and taken a look and realized that some things might just be a can of worms and better left alone. And so it's a very serious conversation, and certainly we feel like where we're at is great.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful location, great part of town.
Central. I mean, you're so like, it feels like that little area, that little part of town is like smack dab in the middle of everything.
Right. Like right now we're downtown, but I sometimes refer to it as Midtown because we're right next to Midtown Square, but that really feels like you're in the middle.
Yeah.
When you think of the whole greater community, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Wade Park, everything. And we have a great professional crowd that comes to us for lunch, and they trust that when they come in, even if it's busy, they're going to be able to have time to get food and get back to work. And there are definitely locations that would make that challenging for our regular professional audience.
Yeah.
So those are things we need to consider very closely.
Yeah.
If we're going to get serious about making some sort of move or, doing a second location, how can we replicate what makes us
special,
the place to come to? Exactly.
That's cool. How can you, percentage wise, like how big is the catering side of the business?
Percentage, it's probably not a huge percentage, like maybe 10%, 10 maybe 15% of the business. Right now, it's really top of mind because we're just jumping into wedding season. We do more weddings than we used to, and we have always, since I started there, I remember June being grad party go time.
Yep.
Before I had anything to do with the catering side of the business, it was every weekend in June is at least one event, and right now is no different. My wife is the head of the catering division, and we had a day off the other day together, and we were out doing stuff, and I think she took 3 catering phone calls, like in the car, and when we got home, it's just nonstop. So right now, even though it's not like a huge part of our business, it's very important to us, and it's just so custom that, unlike our day-to-day operations, we have an amazing team that knows exactly what to do and how to take care of people.
Show up every day and do the same things.
Yeah, more or less.
More or less, yeah.
But then catering is travel and odd locations. We've done events where we'll pull into the driveway and they're like, the tent is around the back of the house, but we don't really have you can't like drive on the grass. So start carrying, down a hill or something, or down to the boat dock. We've put food on boats before. I mean, it's just it's so custom, and we're so busy with it during the summer that it's super top of mind. And
do you guys have to staff up for that in the summer, or can your system currently handle all of that?
Because it's mostly Sam. Like she'll do a 200-person wedding solo.
Wow.
And be able to pull that off. She's a total machine when it comes to the setup, the tear down, the servicing people, dealing with the point of contact, whether it's like a bride or a groom for a wedding or somebody else. She can handle pretty big crowds solo, but without the support staff at the restaurant. I mean, when you're making food for 200 people on top of your regular day, the people that are doing cooking, prep work, back of house stuff, dishes, like all that sort of stuff piles up. So I say she's a solo artist, as far as the catering is concerned, but without the back end, without the team there, like it would be impossible.
Yeah. Fascinating. And we're, as some of our stuff has grown a little bit, we have started to think about like off-site commercial kitchen, and there aren't tons of them in our community. And what does that look like? And it's just juggling that food prep thing in a way that's efficient and meaningful and useful. It's an interesting thing to navigate.
And the extra inventory involved requires storage.
Yep. And it's expensive square footage, to build. Like kitchens are, they're really costly to build. It's not an easy thing to jump into. Yeah.
Yeah. The rules, the codes, that whole system, if you have anything that starts on fire on purpose, like a range or a fryer or something, like you have to have that vent system and that stuff. And it's like prohibitive.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we were able to buy a restaurant that was
already
running and everything, and those are the things you have to consider when you look at an external kitchen or a second location or a move or something. It can be daunting.
Yeah, I get it.
Story is the driving force for us here at Switchboard. Story is also the reason that Chit Chat exists. We tell stories of the people around us through photos, videos, branding, and websites. Story helps us find meaning, and it draws a community together, and we would love to help tell your story. You can find us at www.switchboard.mn. We would love to meet you. We'd love to talk with you and learn more about the story that you are trying to tell and how our story-driven marketing tools can help you communicate better. Can't wait to talk to you soon.
So when have you guys hit your 40 years, or is the 40 years still coming?
We just had the official day was April 16 of this year. So April 16, 85.
Congrats. That's really, really cool. I turn 40 this year too. So it feel, like I feel a little kindred to Bravo in that way, I guess. That's kind of fun. So you have 40 years in your past. What do you think the next 10 years look like for you guys? What are you hoping to learn? How are you hoping to grow? What are you hoping to do in your next decade?
We're trying to, it's been a steady journey the past 4 years as a business owner to kind of take it from learning how to make it work to learning how to make it, not like hands off, but to be not full of like new problems that we don't know how to take care of. And I feel like at this point in the game, I mean, it's never done. You're never done innovating, changing, fixing things, but it works.
Yeah.
The way that it's running right now, it basically works. And in the next 10 years, it is totally a situation of, should we do another location? Can we figure out how to make that work too? Should we move? I think if we did a poll of listeners or of like our social media audience on our page, they'd be like, no, don't move.
Right.
We'd love you where you are.
And change is hard.
Yes.
Yeah, change is hard.
Agreed.
Even if that change means lots of good new things, change can be hard.
Right. An improved kitchen, a bigger dining area, whatever you might want to innovate with. So I think our next 10 years are going to be growth years.
Yeah.
They have to be. I mean, you have like this goal when you start a business, like I want it to work for itself and just kind of run. But also as an entrepreneur, you can never be satisfied like, it's done.
Yeah.
So we definitely are always thinking about the next level, and the next innovation and what that should be. We don't know yet.
How old are your kids?
I have a 6-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl, and I also have a 23-year-old son.
And do any of your kiddos either currently work or want to work in the family biz?
My oldest has his own thing.
Okay.
And he's been in the restaurant space too as an employee, and he said, just like I did when I was his age, like I'm going to get out, I'm going to go do something else, sell cars or real estate or something, and I guess I stuck with it, obviously. And who's to know with him, but I don't think he has any desire to come and work for
dear old
his dad and his stepmom.
Yeah.
And the younger ones proudly rep their Kid Bravo shirts.
Yeah.
They wear them to school and stuff. And I've got pictures of them. They've come and learned how to like bus tables.
Yeah.
And especially in the summer, we can send them to like the summer program where they basically have daycare. They're not old enough to be home alone all day, but we do get them into the restaurant once in a while, once a week, twice a week, especially in the summer. And sometimes they help. Most of the time they just want to sit and look at their tablet or watch YouTube or something in the office. But every once in a while there's something that they want to get at the store, and they're like, oh, we'll work. We'll bust tables, wipe stuff down, if you give us some money.
Yeah.
They know how that works. So they're more or less proud to wear their Bravo gear and come in once in a while, as long as we don't turn it into a full-time job for them.
Yeah. I have a 10 and 12-year-old, and they are both currently, and again, it can change at any minute, of course, but they're both very eager for us to let them work in some sort of like real capacity. Especially my son James, who's 12. I think he would start tomorrow if we'd let him. And yeah, it's kind of fun to the thought of maybe the family business thing could get passed down. It's kind of a fun thought.
Do they do creative stuff? Are they into like your camera gear and all that?
Yeah, both of them really like pictures, but the thing that they spend the most amount of time talking about is Kinder, is the coffee shop, just because, it's easy to think about yourself as a barista, like making coffee drinks and making sandwiches and stuff like that. So
it's a little more out in front too, versus like the behind the scenes aspect of being an event photographer or a video person.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's the kind of job that it's just a little easier to jump into right away. The system's built for you. You don't have to build it. But my son, actually really sweet, he made a bucket list, unprompted. He's 12. In his little journal that he writes in, he wrote his own bucket list. And one of the things on his bucket list was that he would like to have one photo published in National Geographic. Wow. He loves zoos, a big zoo guy. So whenever the Magno family travels, we are for sure finding a zoo somewhere. And so he thinks zoos are the best. And he thinks that he wants to photograph for zoos someday, and that he'd like one of those photos to be published in National Geographic. So he does also have a little bentedness, I think, towards photography, which is really, really sweet. It makes me happy. And again, who knows what tomorrow will hold for him, but it's kind of sweet that he is bent like that. And, he's seen me do it, and I enjoy my career. I enjoy my job. And so I think he thinks that he'd like to do that too, which is sweet.
Our families have a little bit of that in common, because we are a zoo family as well. But, we've done the Duluth Zoo when we've gone up there. My son and my wife are at Hemker today on a field trip, and we always go as a family. That one in particular, they have that sign map right at the front when you walk into the zoo, and we have a family selfie from every time we've stopped there. So
that's
I've
really
got
fun.
this little photo album,
Yeah.
digital, that's got like 6 or 7
Yeah.
family selfies, and it's kind of neat to watch them. There's the first year they got the baby teeth. The next year, like one of them's got no front teeth.
Yeah.
And you watch them grow. And one year, I've got this ridiculous beard from the winter. Great, that's awesome. I'm glad I saved that for posterity.
Do you guys have a favorite zoo?
I'd probably say that Hemker's our favorite. Sure. It's the closest. The kids might say the Brainerd one because it's got an amusement park attached to it.
There you go.
So,
that helps.
Yeah, that definitely is an attraction.
Have you been to the Omaha Zoo?
No, actually, we haven't traveled outstate with our kids
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
Omaha. Okay, yeah.
It's, I think, like maybe a 4 or 5 hour drive, 6, 7. I don't remember. It was on its way somewhere.
Nebraska.
In Nebraska.
Yeah.
That's got to be 6 hours, right? 6-ish.
Yeah, you're probably about right there.
And it absolutely was incredible. I don't think it's my favorite. I don't think it's my favorite zoo, but my favorite exhibit is at the Omaha Zoo. They have a big dome that is just absolutely fascinating. And yeah, it's beautiful. Omaha Zoo. You really did it. But yeah, the Maginot's, whenever we travel, we're for sure checking out a zoo. There was actually a really fun little span where I think James was in the span of like just a couple of weeks, was at 3 really, really cool kind of prominent U.S. zoos. Just the nature of how stuff fell. He got to go and see some cool ones. And so he just loves it. Yeah. I want to see one more food question. Sure. Why do you think local food is important? There are, and it feels like Central Minnesota, we love our chains, right? It just every major chain we've got, we have them here in Central Minnesota. Maybe that's true of every community, but it just feels like when you drive down Division, there's just a lot. But for someone who has made their career in local food, why is that important?
Well, I guess number one is the community aspect of it. Mm-hmm. It's probably no different than any other local business. If you want to, you could hire like a national or international marketing firm to do your work for you. Yeah. But how nice is it to go to your marketing agency and know the owner or the person like literally comes to your business and local food, a lot of those chains and stuff, they might be franchise owned by a local person. Sometimes not even though. Yeah. But we're here, and in our specific case, we were born and raised here. Yeah. The other aspect is just is knowing that a smaller restaurant business is probably sourcing more local in general, and food, diet, nutrition, that sort of stuff makes big headlines these days. National headlines with obesity and I guess things that could like cause cancer, carcinogenic things in food and stuff. And I think the more local you are, the more likely you are to buy more local stuff. Yeah. Know where it's coming from. We buy our produce most of our produce comes from they're local at Columbia Heights, but it's a small business. It's not one of like the big giant food company trucks. We use those companies too. I mean, how can you not, but we buy our meat from Minnesota Gold over in Waite Park. They're local, and I think even if you're not like farm to table, which is kind of like a buzzword in the industry, we're doing our business here. Yeah. And
keeping dollars here.
And that benefits everybody in the community because we're a local economy before we're a national or an international economy, and the personalized aspect of it I think is important too. Some of my favorite restaurants are locally owned people that I've known for years, being a local guy, and those are the places that I stop every time. I mean, I've done a drive-through, at a chicken place or something before, but I don't know. I mean, that's more like a out of need. Like we got to feed these kids really quick, like the kids are going to get a McDonald's cheeseburger or something. But if I'm going out to eat, like it has to be a local place almost every time, because those are our people. Those are our local tribe, right?
Yeah. When the average person that doesn't spend 40 plus hours a week working in a restaurant, they have the only relationship they have to restaurants is, oh, it's fun because I get to go out to eat tonight, right? For someone that spends all day in a restaurant, on a Friday night, if you and your family are together, do you think about like, oh, it would be so fun to go out? Or because you spend all day in a restaurant, are you more inclined to want to be home on a Friday night rather than going out?
It might be some of that, but it's also like my kids are kind of homebodies.
Yeah.
Like they get done with school and it's like, you guys want to go to a park? No, we just want to go home. Whether it's sit in the house or, use the above ground pool or their personal playground, whatever it is. So we tend to be a little bit more go home. And our kids are picky eaters. I've had some success bringing them to different restaurants before, but they like Bo Diddley's, for example, another local staple. That they love going to Bo Diddley's, but they want to get the hot dog and the mac and cheese. They're not going in for a giant combo like Sam and I are gonna get. They want like a cup of Sprite and some microwaved mac and cheese.
Yeah.
So they're not super interested in cuisine. My oldest son, like I would take him out to sushi when he was like 8, and he loved it. And we've tried, and I'm just, my kids are just, they're not ready to be culinary adventurers yet, which is fine. So
I have one of each. I have one who is very picky, and I have one who will try literally anything, which is kind of fun.
Which can also make restaurant traveling challenging. You know you're going to get something for one, and maybe something for the other. Yeah, I get it. So, but we like to go out. Bravo likes to, whenever possible, sponsor like bands at the theaters, the Pioneer Place or the Paramount or something. And anytime we get that opportunity, usually that means like we're going to deliver catering. So we deliver it early enough so we can go and hit like a downtown restaurant. The kids will stay home and they'll do their thing with their favorite babysitter, and we'll go out to eat. And that's really like our chance to go and visit our friends' restaurants in the downtown area mostly. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, sweet. Mike, 40 years in a community is really special, really, really cool. Congrats on buying a local staple and giving it everything. It'll be fun to see what the next handful of years continue to look like for you guys as you keep making it your own. And just well done on that. As we close every podcast, we do an unpaid ad. Do you have someone, something, or some idea that you think deserves a little shout out today?
Yes, actually, I do, and it's downtown related.
Yeah?
I don't know when you're going to air this episode, but I am on the board of the IMCCM, Independent Music Collaborative of Central Minnesota, and that everybody knows Project 37, which is the big wing of that. And we bought a building downtown that is going to be an all-ages, safe, sober music venue and coffee shop.
Yep.
And even though like I do share stuff about that and I am on the board, but I'm kind of new to the nonprofit board game and how that all works and stuff. And so I tend to be a little bit of a wallflower. I don't want to like take credit for the hard work that like the people that are really on the ground, like busting their butt to try and make this thing go. But it's really neat to be a part of it. I help with the marketing. I've shot some videos for them and stuff. And that coffee shop and music venue is on the cusp of getting open.
Yeah.
And I'm more of a make coffee in the morning in my drip machine and bring it to work with me and go that route. But I'm really excited to be able to spend some time at the new venue downtown. I'm really excited about downtown in general and having another building that is currently empty getting filled and putting more faces and more people working downtown. I'm really excited about that. So looking forward to the future, and I know you're a coffee shop guy too, and that's a competitive business.
No. yeah, we're excited. More businesses downtown, more empty buildings filled.
Exactly.
There is no coffee downtown other than Starbucks. So, yeah, I think that would be really cool.
I'm really excited to see it. And as a musician that grew up at the Java Joint
Yeah.
and stuff, like seeing this, a space that can have teenagers and young adults have a place to play that's not a 21 up venue is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to lift up the 21 plus venues also, because it'll fertilize the ground for another era of artists that are going to want to play into their adulthood. You know, some people play music as a youth and then they kind of drift away from it. And some people like me never do, you know, and having a place to play that's not just for the bar people, for the middle-aged people or whatever is amazing. And I can't wait to see that start happening in downtown St. Cloud.
Very, very cool. Yeah. Angela's coming on the podcast and we'll hear from her soon, but well, sweet. Mike, thanks for coming. Really nice to spend some time with you. And we'll have to come grab lunch here sometime soon and see ya.
Right on, guy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.